On a spiritual path, we're told to be vegetarians for reasons due to things like ahimsa, right? Nonviolence. But most of us, sadly, are given it really very superficially. The good news is that works for a lot of people. It's violent to the animals. They suffer. They are God's creation. And for a lot of people, that's enough. Thou shalt not bring suffering onto others. Great. For all of those that works for, wonderful. The dilemma is there's a lot for whom that doesn't work. And this is where we have to go deeper. Because vegetarianism, or rather non-vegetarianism, the meat industry, is violent in ways that are far vaster than the violence of killing an animal to eat it. There was a time in history where people went out into the forest with bows and arrows and they killed a deer and they brought it home and the whole village ate it for a month. Well, it was still violent to the deer, but it was sustainable. And if it was all they had, I mean, obviously, yes, we would prefer they ate potatoes and spinach and lentils and whatnot. But it was a sustainable way of a food chain. Because, of course, when the lion eats the deer, that's also violence. Right? You watch a National Geographic special and the lions are running after the zebras or whatever. Now, who do you root for? Huh? Anybody ever root for the lion? No, right? We always root for the zebra. Go, 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 he's coming. And yet, on a deep core level, we understand the lion's got to eat also. Right? We don't begrudge the lion for doing what lions have to do, which is eat zebras. So in the same way, when hundreds of years ago, without the type of agriculture that we have today, the type of food transport that we have today, people went out into the forests and they took a bow and arrow and they hunted a deer and they ate it for a month. Okay, still violent to the deer. But I think it would be hard to make a moral case of wrongness against that person. Unless they had a lot of other options, which at that point, most of them didn't. The issue today is it's an entirely different ballgame. We're not even talking about the same thing. The meat industry today is just that, it's an industry. It has nothing to do with people walking out with a bow and arrow, killing a deer in the forest and taking a month to eat it with the village. Today we are talking about an industry that is directly responsible for the deforestation of the rainforests, for climate change, for water shortages, for people going hungry and dying of starvation around the planet. The meat industry has become a scourge on the face of humanity, far beyond the eating of an animal. The meat industry today is the single greatest contributor to climate change. It is the single greatest cause of the deforestation of our rainforests. Why? Well, because land in places like America and England and Europe and well, it's kind of expensive. Right? Per square foot, it's kind of expensive. Well, land in the rainforests, a lot cheaper. So they go in and they cut down all of the trees and they use that land now to graze the cows who become hamburgers. An acre of rainforest, well, between 1 and 2 acres of rainforest, is being cut down every second just for beef. Every second. Anybody here ever sign a petition in person or online to protect the rainforests? Right? I mean, anybody ever give a donation to Greenpeace, the Nature Conservancy, World Wildlife Fund? The meat industry is their greatest enemy, and it is far more powerful. For every acre they can save, McDonald's is cutting them down, God knows how many times as fast. The amount of water that goes into the production of 1 pound of meat. So you and a couple friends sit down for quarter pounders. Or you have a big steak. That amount of water is the same amount of water that you use in bathing for 6 months. It's about 10,000 liters of water, about 2,500 gallons. It's the amount of water you use in bathing for 6 months. Now, anyone here turn off the tap while they soap up? Turn off the tap while you're brushing your teeth? Right? We all should. It's nothing compared to the amount of water that you are wasting if you're eating meat. 6 months of bathing, 1 meal of meat. Which means that if you care about water, you literally would have to not bathe for 6 months after every meal of hamburgers to offset that water use. Chicken is about 1/3, so you'd only have to go without bathing for 2 months. And it uses all that water because, well, it eats a lot of grain, so the grain has to be grown. That takes water. The animals drink a lot of water during their lives. They're bathed with water. Then when they're killed, the amount of water that is needed to extricate that which you eat from the feces, the blood, the urine, takes a lot of water because it's not so neatly separated inside. It all kind of comes out together, so they need a lot of water to separate it. You end up with 6 months worth of bathing water for 1 meal of meat. And lastly, I could go on about this all night, but I'll give you just one more example. Every day, tens of thousands of people die of starvation. Every day. Okay? So we have one 9/11. We have one 26/11. We have one bombing somewhere, and it's horrible. And a few dozen people, a few hundred people, a few thousand people die. It's horrible, and we should stop it. And every day, tens of thousands of people are dying of starvation. 1 billion people almost go to sleep hungry every night. Those are those who make it through the night. Almost 1 billion sleep hungry. Now we actually produce enough grain, means wheat, rice, corn, soy, to feed 10 billion people. Okay? It's a lot more than we even have on planet Earth. The US alone produces enough grain to give every person on earth 2 loaves of bread a day. No one needs to go hungry, let alone die of starvation. The dilemma is that well over 50% of the planet's grain, I think it's 70% internationally, 90% in some places like America, of the grain that is grown isn't given to people. It's given to the cows and the pigs and the chickens who are being raised to become our hamburgers, hot dogs, chicken McNuggets. The amount of grain that goes into meat is 16 times what it would take to feed people. So 1 pound of beef takes 16 pounds of grain. The reason for that, of course, is that the animals digest most of what they eat. Most of what you feed animals isn't coming out in what you get. Most of what they eat, they digest, they poop. It takes 16 pounds of grain feeding that cow to ultimately end up with 1 pound of beef. Okay? 16 pounds in, 1 pound out. But with those same 16 pounds of grain, you could make 16 pounds of bread, of rice, of pasta. So your choice really is feed 16 people a vegetarian diet or feed 1 person meat. Which means that every time I choose meat, I am saying, I deserve the food of 15 other people. Let them starve. Let them die. I want a hamburger. Now you tell me which spiritual tradition, which scripture, which religion, which understanding of God tells us you deserve the food for 15 other people. 15 people should starve so you can eat hamburgers. None of them. I mean, they all tell us in different ways. Share, care. The world, is your family. In Hinduism, we say Vasudev Kutumbakam. Well, could you imagine sitting down to dinner at a table with 16 people, right? Big stack of chapatis comes out, and you pick up the entire plate. And you bring it to you. Ab socho, right? Sabhi logon ke liye roti aa gaya. 16 logon ka. Sabhi baite hain. Or kitchen se kuch aane wale nahi hai. Right? Whoever's cooking has made them. Now she's going to come and sit down. She's made rotis for everybody. Ab she's going to come sit. Now you take that whole stack of rotis and you take them all. Koi soch sakte hain? Imagine. All the food on the table. Yeah. You people can starve. We wouldn't do that in a family. We wouldn't do that in a community. We wouldn't do that anywhere. But every time we eat meat, that's exactly what we're doing. And so, on any aspect of a spiritual path, any aspect of a yogic path, we have to be vegetarian. Not because the cow is holy. If you believe it is wonderful, then it's easy for you. But because we believe life in general is holy. Because we believe this planet is holy. Because we believe the future is holy. Because we believe that our sisters and brothers living all over this world are holy. That life in general is sacred. So whether you believe the cow is holy or not doesn't matter. Is life sacred? Is the planet sacred? If it is, we have to be vegetarians.